Hello, my name is Victor, and in this channel we're going to be discussing what might come next to replace capitalism and democracy in their current forms. The channel is called the Third Attractor, and that's named after the concept popularized by Daniel Schmachtenberger, who is saying that our world system might end up in two attractors, which are increasingly likely right now, which is either complete chaos and multipolar traps and lack of coordination and etc. Or on the other end of the extreme is complete centralization and the dystopia and surveillance state, a global one. So what are basins of attraction? Think of a rubber sheet with some heavy lead balls on it. Systems are stable in the basins, in the places where the weights create a depression in the rubber sheets, and they are unstable between the basins. A society is most of the time in a basin of attraction, and it will often stay there for a long time. In times of instability, which is increasingly our situation, with every passing year, the chance and potential for a discontinuous event happening is increasing, and so there's enormous risk and also opportunity for what attractor we fall into for the next chapter of humanity. There are other ways of thinking of the possible attractors. Jim Rutt, for example, has written about 4 or 5 potential ones, but the risks and necessity for change are clear no matter how we think of the possibilities. But who am I, and why do I think that I have anything relevant to say? Well, here's the story. I used to be a game developer, an engineer. After that, I worked in the database industry, and then I worked in the crypto industry, and I worked on Ethereum. And after that, I decided to make a new type of social media where we could comment on long-form media like podcasts on specific points in time. But I want to make a better UX, a better UI than YouTube or SoundCloud, where you can actually comment on specific points in time. And what I wanted to be able to have a window, like a widget, on top of the entire timeline of the episode, and so that I can move that window and I can resize it, and I can filter all of the comments only for that area which I have selected. Like, for example, a specific topic on the podcast. And I gradually realized that if I wanted to bootstrap this thing off the ground, I would have to eventually make an entire new social media, and I would have to bootstrap an entire new social graph just to make the thing viable. And that's like a Herculean task. And I simply wanted to improve the current platforms, but there wasn't an easy way. I could make it like an extension, like a plugin for the browser or something like that, but it would have been incredibly limited in terms of what it could do. So I basically read the best papers I could find on how to decentralize media and identity, and I just picked the best parts of them, and I came up with a new novel design, which I think is perhaps the closest we could get to an optimal design. And I could have raised money perhaps 2 years ago, but I decided to not simply rush ahead and do another Twitter clone, but decentralized this time, but to actually answer the question, what could we use the internet for? Like, what's the full potential of truly sovereign identity in an open and composable ecosystem where anybody can build and innovate and extend the capabilities of the system? Here are a few of my claims. So my design for decentralized identity basically doesn't have any scalability limitations. It has no usability limitations which currently crypto has because of all the wallets and private keys we have to deal with. So the user experience will be indistinguishable from our current experience with Facebook and Twitter and whatever. So a Web 2 experience, but it will be Web 3 underneath, like on blockchain. So yeah, it basically doesn't have scalability limitations, and it could handle the entire internet and actually everybody on the planet. I've already given 2 lectures on conferences regarding my ideas. The first one was technical in November 2022, and the next one, which was last year, November 2023, it was about what kind of social media dynamics we could actually have. I've had a lot of time to read because I don't have any other job. This is my full-time occupation. I'm funding it myself. And so here are some of the thinkers that I've been mostly reading and watching everything which I could find from them. Daniel Schmachtenberger, Jim Rutt, Jordan Ho, John Vervaeke, John Stewart, who is an evolutionary theorist and also a complexity researcher, Francis Heiligen, who is also a complexity and cybernetics researcher, Brendan Graham Dempsey, Bobby Azarian, Greg Henriquez, and many people from the so-called liminal web have been an incredible inspiration and source of knowledge for my current thinking of what we could actually achieve with the internet and what we actually need as a system. So what kind of topics are we going to cover on this channel? So let me just go down through a list to get an idea. Complexity, self-organization, cybernetics, emergence, collective intelligence, stigmergy and cognition, free energy principle, governance, attention allocation, availability cascades, algorithmic feeds, consciousness, sense-making, and how to apply the principles of consciousness on a global level. What are debate and argument maps? What is relevance realization? How do we think about epistemology and science? How does reputation and status fit into this whole thing? What is liquid democracy? What is incentive design? What is how can we actually align people? Because currently everybody is talking about the alignment of AIs, but actually we haven't aligned people at all. We're going to talk about coherence, game theory, collective action, multipolar traps, tragedies of the commons, the evolution of cooperation, participatory culture, cultural evolution, economics, markets, capitalism, meritocracy, psychology, anthropology, privacy and anonymity, AI and LLMs and how they fit into this whole picture, integrated information, social organization, evolution's direction, the meaning of life, worldview, morality, and religion, and even God. We're going to cover all of that. One way to think about the history of humanity is in terms of what kinds of tools we've had, like the Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age. But a much more meaningful way to think about it is in terms of our ability to communicate and exchange information. And so actually the biggest jumps were language, writing, and the printing press. And that's when the biggest changes in terms of social structures occurred. And nobody has actually tried to reinvent our global structure on top of the internet from first principles. So we're running on top of a few centuries old operating system in terms of democracy and capitalism sort of in their current form. And back then we used to send horses with letters between cities to exchange information. And right now we have point-to-point instant communication between anyone, any two people in the entire world. And we can also aggregate information. And so we have actually a tremendous opportunity to come up with a new meta solution to all of our problems. That's my claim. That this third attractor, which I'm going to be proposing, is going to be the meta solution to any single problem. And at first that might sound too ambitious or insane or preposterous, but in time, I hope that you start to see why I'm thinking like that. And again, we're going to be talking about different problems and how we could actually solve them through the system which I'm going to be proposing. And so what I'm proposing is a fundamental upgrade to our ability to cooperate, to coordinate, and to think together and to have collective cognition on a global scale. And not just on a global scale, but on any scale. So this software and stack which I'm going to be proposing is going to be usable not just on a global level, but also on a national level, or a city level, or on a company level, or on a party level, or even in like a neighborhood. Like it's going to be the same set of principles and interactions. Once you learn that way of interacting with others, your capacity to be more cooperative and synergistic with others is going to be improved in any area of your life. So what we're going to be talking about is something like a planetary nervous system, and not just planetary, but on any scale. Any type of collective will be able to use this software stack to think together and cooperate together more effectively. And it's all about self-organization, like how does order emerge out of local interactions and local entities following local rules? How does something greater than the sum of the parts emerge? And how we can actually improve every aspect of that emergence so that whatever emerges is the most optimal and beneficial thing for as many people as possible. One way to think about it is China and their social credit score system, which is defined top-down, and it's basically about restricting your rights. And it's basically top-down programming of the masses of what they should be doing and how they should be behaving. And what I'm going to be proposing is the complete opposite of that. Something where we bottom up define democratically the rules for how you might actually rise upwards in a hierarchy. Basically, we can collectively define what the rules for legitimacy are, and we can subjectively choose how to evaluate others objectively and what the rules of the game are. We're also going to talk about artificial intelligence in this channel, but in terms of what's going to happen with the current trends of AI and their capabilities, and if we will achieve AGI or whatever, I'm as clueless as basically almost everybody else. And so we're all in the same boat in that regard. But I'm going to be talking about how we can use the AI which we already have achieved in terms of LLMs and their capabilities to actually make this whole thing which I'm going to be proposing functional, because without them it would have been a lot harder to actually do what I'm going to be proposing. And so everybody is currently focusing on artificial intelligence, but here we're going to be talking about collective intelligence. So what's my plan for the project? Well, I think I need one more year to write a book, which I've been so far collecting notes for. It's going to be partly sci-fi, but actually everything is going to be completely realistic. So it will be truly futuristic, but still grounded in reality. And my goal is to finish it by the end of next year, by the end of 2025. So this is my project 2025. And after that, I'm going to be fundraising and actually building this new social media, this next version of the internet. When I finish the book, I'm going to create a bunch of lectures and I'm going to read through it. It's going to be between 20 and 50 hours. The book itself is going to be free, and it's going to be like technical documentation in terms of how you browse it and how you read it. It's going to have a tree view on the site, and you're going to be able to browse through the chapters and see the hierarchical structure of the book itself. And so it's going to be optimized for comprehension and readability, just like documentation is for, engineering projects. So why am I doing this channel now? Because I want to start getting out my ideas to the world and to see if other people think like me or how much this resonates. I also want to develop my skills in terms of just speaking fluidly and without scripting, because I have actually done maybe 20 different presentations in the past on different conferences where I always read my slides. Like I had very specific bullet points and I went point through point, and it was always incredibly dense in terms of information, but it was really scripted. And I want to develop a different aspect of my capability to actually speak freely about ideas. And so my goal is to simply start explaining the idea as if I would explain it to a friend of mine or some acquaintance. Like I meet someone and I just try to explain it to them. And so this first video is going to be the shortest one, and it's going to be the most scripted one. As you can see, it's full of different takes. But in the future, I'm going to try to do like 30 or 60-minute takes, or even maybe longer, with as little cuts as possible. And I will have really vague plans for what to talk about, a few bullet points, but I won't even have to go through them in that specific order. So it's going to be as freeform as possible. And depending on the questions and on the interactions by the audience, you'll be effectively be able to steer where the conversation goes next. Because if this was like a conversation between me and somebody else, they would have questions, and there would be a back and forth, and they would be trying to fill the holes of my explanations, and they'll be asking like, well, how does that work? Have you thought about that? And stuff like that. And so in this format, I'll be depending also on questions in the comment sections. And if somebody surfaces who is like really, capable and competent and wants to discuss this in some live conversation, we'll be able to also do that. And so what you can expect is for me to make episodes once every 2 or 3 weeks. My plan is to continue reading and working on my ideas. And whenever I just want to have a day off where I don't want to consume more information. And that's the day when I can simply record these. And that's my plan, to fill those holes in terms of 3 days with something productive where I'm actually starting to get my ideas out. And yeah, that's basically the plan for the channel. At some point, you're going to start realizing that this system I'm going to propose really will affect literally everything. And so you can imagine like a graph like this where you start to having more and more objections or questions as time goes on, as episodes go on. But at some point that's going to peak, and then more and more of your questions hopefully will become resolved. And I think that at the end of the whole thing, you will have very little unanswered questions, and we'll be on the same page, and you'll actually see what I mean when I say that this could be something like the meta solution to literally any problem we have.